Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
Okay, so we're talking about the connective tissue. Hopefully you guys are not getting bored or you're not getting tired of hearing about this stuff, because it is so important when it comes to the aging process, when it comes to health, when it comes to disease. Aging itself is in large part the result of a breakdown and a loss of flexibility in the connective tissue. It's kind of a metaphor. We become inflexible as we age, and not just physically, but in a metaphorical sense, we become inflexible mentally. And this is another part of the aging process. Flexibility is associated with youth. Resilience is associated with youth. Resilience and flexibility are also associated with health, and they're manifested in the body via the connective tissue. As we get older, the connective tissue becomes stiffer, more fibrotic, harder. And this is a quarter to a third of the body we're talking about here. So this is pretty significant. As we were talking yesterday, one of the most important aspects of this connective tissue hardening, this hardening effect in the body, shows up in the circulatory system. It shows up as clotted, sticky, hard blood, if you will, fibrotic blood, fibery blood. And it shows up as a loss of flexibility, a fibrosis or a hardening in the vessels that carry the blood, particularly the arteries of the heart. This is called arteriosclerosis. Sclerosis meaning hard, or hardening, arterio meaning the arteries. Sometimes they'll call it atherosclerosis, same idea. And this represents the major cause of heart disease, hardening of the heart, or specifically hardening of the arteries. This hardening follows a breakdown of the arteries. It's a compensatory mechanism. It's a repair mechanism. Hardening occurs as a result of the body's attempt to patch up leaky vessels or patch up weakened vessels. This hardening is a result of fibers and involves the deposition of calcium and cholesterol. And this is a very important point, as many, if not most, medical professionals, as well as most patients, have been deluded, tricked, hypnotized, misled, bamboozled into believing that cholesterol is somehow the bad guy. It is not the bad guy. When we think it's the bad guy, this allows us to suppress cholesterol production pharmacologically. It makes it logical to become pharmacological. Oh, cholesterol's a bad guy. Let's just suppress cholesterol production. No cholesterol, no heart disease. Wrong. That's not how it works. Not to mention the fact that if you're suppressing the production of something in the body, you are, by definition, poisoning it. That's why pharma or pharmaco is the same word as poison. How the heck can anybody, especially a healthcare professional, think that this is okay? That somehow you're going to make the body healthier by poisoning it, that somehow poisoning the body is a health strategy. This is insane. Absolutely insane. And if your physician is doing this to you, he's insane. Or at least just hypnotized. Over 80 million Americans have heart disease. That's 1 out of 4 of us. How can this be? 1 out of 4 of us. This is not only tragic and significant, it's absurd. Clearly, we're doing something wrong when it comes to taking care of our bodies and when it comes to taking care of our hearts. And the most important thing we're doing wrong is not understanding it, not understanding this mechanism. We think that our bodies are too complicated and we need to go to some authority to tell us about our bodies, but it's not too complicated. It's very, very simple. Your arteries are getting weak. As part of the aging process, they get weak because mostly because of nutritional deficiencies, but also hypoxia. And by the way, when we talk about the arteries getting weak, we're talking about the arterial cells getting weak. And this is another important point when it comes to health. We have cell disease. Our cells are breaking down. It's not the arteries that are breaking down. That's what it looks like, but it's the cells of the artery. And the cells are breaking down because they're malnourished, they're not getting enough oxygen, and they are toxic, especially toxic with sugar. So what's the medical model's response to this problem? Drugs, statin drugs. According to the Cleveland Clinic, quote, statins are the first-line treatment of choice for patients with high cholesterol and those diagnosed with coronary heart disease. Statins have additional benefits. Oh, these things are like miracles. This is what the Cleveland Clinic wants you to think. They have all these wonderful benefits. They'll, beyond lower, continuing on with the quote here, statins have additional benefits beyond lowering cholesterol levels. They also help the lining of the blood vessels work better. They enhance the stability of atherosclerotic plaques. They reduce the amount of inflammation and damage done to cells through oxidation, oxidative stress, and they keep blood platelets from clumping together, thereby reducing the risk of a blood clot. They're magical. They're just magical little pills you just take and all your symptoms go away. This is what the Cleveland Clinic believes, and they want you to believe too. And they make no mention, of course, of why the cholesterol levels are high in the first place. And the problem is this lack of attention to why we have the problem in the first place, which is a common theme in the world of cardiology. Nobody's talking about why we got the problem in the first place. The problem is that, for one thing, cholesterol is the body's most important biochemical and tremendously multifunctional. It's involved in the production of vitamin D and the production of bile and your steroid hormones. All your cell membranes depend on it. Skin health depends on it. It's an important healing compound. It's patching up the arteries. There's so many benefits to this stuff. Secondly, if you just suppress the cholesterol production and you don't do anything about the original problem, i.e. the weak blood vessels, you still got the problem. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. We'll take a break and come back with more good health information on the bright side right after this. Okay, so we're talking about cholesterol, statin drugs. I don't want to beat a dead horse. We talk about, we've heard ad nauseum about the problems with statin drugs, and we've heard about the benefits of statin drugs. It's pretty much all over now, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, except to say that if you're on a statin drug, if your doctor is recommending a statin drug, number one, you're suppressing the body's most important biochemical, arguably, cholesterol, multifunctional, stupendously valuable. And number two, if you just suppress your cholesterol production without doing anything about the problem in the first place, well, obviously, you still have the problem. And this is why a 2012 study published in the journal Atherosclerosis found that statin use is associated with a 52% increased prevalence and extent of calcified coronary plaque. That means that when you take a statin drug, you get more calcification, which makes sense when you understand why the cholesterol is there. The cholesterol is a patch, and if there's not enough cholesterol, the body's going to stick more calcium. In other words, suppression of cholesterol via drugs led, in this study, to the deposition of more calcium in the arteries, which makes perfect sense. Arterial plaque, the sticky stuff that patches up the arteries and increases your risk of heart disease, is a compensatory mechanism. And anything that increases calcification and stiffening of your arteries, i.e. statin drugs, should be avoided. Another study, this one in the journal Diabetes Care in August of 2012, found that type 2 diabetics suffering from atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, who are frequent statin users, have significantly higher amounts of calcification compared to less frequent statin users. Again, the same idea. Less cholesterol, more calcification, which makes perfect sense when you understand the role of the cholesterol. Even worse, according to this study, in a subgroup of study participants who were not on statin drugs, when they went on their statin drugs, coronary calcification was significantly increased. If you've had a heart attack or if your arteries are blocked, you don't need statin drugs. The conventional wisdom is heart attack, you're on a statin drugs. You got coronary artery calcification or blockages, statin drugs. But there are many non-medical strategies that you can use, depending, of course, on how significant your problems are. If your problems are really significant, if you've been mucking up the system for decades, well, you can't just, you may need a Band-Aid. You may need a statin drug Band-Aid. And to be perfectly honest, while I'm certainly no fan of prescription drugs, sometimes as Band-Aids, to kind of tide us over until we can figure things out, until we can rectify the lifestyle choices that cause the problems in the first place, sometimes they can be helpful. And so, depending on how significant your problems are, your blockages are, you may need a statin drug if they're really significant, but you might not. If you're 50 years old or 60 years old and you've been indulging in the standard American diet, the SAD, you may need to have some kind of medical intervention. You may even need a surgical procedure. That may be the case. On the other hand, you may not. And just because your doctor told you so doesn't make it true. And that's unfortunate. And it's just, I don't want to say it's unfortunate. Medicine is an imperfect science. They promote themselves as a perfect science, but it's not. So if you're 50 or 60 years old, you may need a medical intervention. If you got a serious problem. If you're in your 70s, you may need a medical intervention, but you might not. And there certainly are options. And by the way, your options, your non-medical options, do not include eating less cholesterol. That's irrelevant. Even the government came out and said that was irrelevant about a year and a half ago. So eating less eggs isn't a part of the strategy. Eating less cholesterol is a silly idea anyway, as Dr. Wallach and myself and other savvy professionals have been saying for a long time. Options, however, have everything to do with building your connective tissue, strengthening your connective tissue. And in this way, there are endless supplements, endless supplemental strategies that can be very helpful. We're talking here about blood vessel strength, blood vessel flexibility, and the health of the blood itself. And this is why things like vitamin C, glucosamine, essential fatty acids, building proteins, gelatin, cartilage, bone broth protein, copper, zinc, these are way more important for cardiovascular health than anything you can get from a doctor. Way. And again, if you need a medical intervention, if you're in an emergency posture, if you're in an emergency condition, you may need medical intervention. But that's not to say that these nutritional strategies are not way more valuable for cardiovascular health, overall cardiovascular health, than a statin drug, aside from emergency conditions. And this is so important, this understanding is so important because it frees us from the medical model. It reduces the likelihood of us having to deal with heart disease, the leading cause of mortality and misery. Now, I don't have heart disease, but I can only imagine what that must be like to have your heart sick, to have the key structure in the body, the ultimate, the quintessential example of the life force in the body, sick or fragile in any way. It's tragic. It's heartbreaking. No pun intended. Interestingly, connective tissue substances, connective tissue building substances like glucosamine and high hyaluronic acid and vitamin C and essential fatty acids have blood thinning properties. Yes, blood is connective tissue. So if you're strengthening your connective tissue, if you're using supplemental strategies and health strategies to strengthen the connective tissue in the vessels, you're going to strengthen the blood too. You're going to improve the way the blood moves through the circulatory system, and this is always a good thing. Lots of ways to do that. In fact, if you wanted to pick one strategy, and I'm exaggerating here because there isn't one strategy, but if you want to pick one strategy to improve health and longevity, it would be to improve blood circulation. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. Got an empty board for you. A couple of things I want to tell you about here. This is a study that was published a couple weeks ago in the journal Science Immunology. Quote, acne yields up a secret that points to new treatments. Well, they figured out how bacteria trigger inflammation. Acne is a confluence of 3 or 4 different factors, or acne pimples, I should say, are the confluence of 3 different factors. You've got 3 or 4 different factors depending on how you look at it. You got bacteria, which are on the skin at all times. You've got cells that are dividing very rapidly, and you've got excess secretion of skin oils. Between these 3 factors, bacteria and skin cells that are dividing rapidly and excess secretions of oil, you end up with a condition where these bacteria become trapped under the skin. And that's when they proliferate. According to this article, quote, usually P. acnes, that's the name of the bacteria, live on the skin harmlessly. But when the bacteria are caught in certain circumstances, in a clogged pore, surrounded by oil, and no air, they can cause the inflammatory response known as acne, unquote. This is why using exfoliating techniques can be helpful for dealing with acne, particularly glycolic acid, salicylic acid, and my all-time favorite exfoliating ingredient, retinol. This is one of the major mechanisms of retinol, and retinoic acid for that matter, for dealing with acne. It helps remove the dead skin that traps the bacteria. In addition, retinol gives you extra benefits. Retinol helps stabilize the growth of these, the movement and growth of these skin cells, so that trapping is less likely to occur. So retinol, glycolic acid, salicylic acid, enzymes, also just a plain old washcloth can help remove cells that can trap the bacteria leading to your acne breakout. You don't need anything fancy. But by the way, this is how benzoyl peroxide works too. But you don't need to go to anything fancy. This plain old apple cider vinegar can work, although it's not as strong certainly as glycolic acid or retinol, but you can still get some benefits from apple cider vinegar or lemon juice for that matter. All right, 844-236-6010 is our number on the bright side. Bob in Minneapolis. Good morning. Welcome to the bright side.
Hey, good morning, Ben.
Good morning.
I want to play a little devil's advocate.
Okay.
And it's not because I don't believe in your message at all. It's just that you hear things, and I just like to bounce it off you.
Sure.
But bottom line is, when it comes to pharmaceutical drugs, which is obviously a poison, do you believe that at some point, though, through trial and error, that they finally come across some drugs that actually provide a real benefit when it comes to Alzheimer's or any of these plaque buildup problems in our body, such that the bottom line is is it that they do produce a benefit, or is there always a trade-off even though there is a benefit? What's your position on that?
Yeah, that's
a drug I want to hit you on specifically that they're touting today as being very promising due to brain scans showing removing all plaque from the brain for Alzheimer's. And the drug they're touting, which is in trial right now, but the drug they're touting is this aducanumab.
Okay, well, I hadn't heard of that one in particular, but whenever I hear the suffix amab, A-M-A-B, or something along those lines, I kind of know the class of drug you're talking about. But spell it for me. Can you spell it? Do you have it there in front of you?
Yeah, A-D-U-C-A-N-U-M-A-B.
Okay, MABs, UMABs, like Humira, you've probably seen that one advertised now, for example. These AMAB drugs are super-duper high-tech drugs. This is the latest salvo in immune-suppressing anti-inflammatory drugs. It's like a 21st century super high-tech version of prednisone. All right? So, of course, it's going to help remove plaques because plaques are part of the inflammatory process. So let me answer your question because it's a really neat question, Bob. Do I believe that there's any time that there's going to be a drug or is it possible to invent a drug that's great for you and that doesn't have problems? No, and I'll tell you why. The nature of drugs is to suppress something in the body. If you believe that the body is wrong, that the body makes mistakes, that the body's screwed up, then you can say, okay, well, we're going to fix it, and it's possible to come up with a magic fix that will just take care of the screw up and no other problem. But I don't believe that. I believe that what we call disease is really compensatory mechanisms. It's the body trying to do its business, but just in an overwhelmed state. Do you follow me? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The second, so I don't think that's possible because from a philosophical reason, I don't believe that the body does anything wrong. So that's the first point. Okay. The second point is, and this is also very important and very underappreciated. Number one, as I said, if we stick our nose in the body's business, if you will, there's an implication there that we're smarter than the body. I don't think that's true. But number two, and most significantly and underappreciated, is the fact that if you believe all disease is cell disease, it all starts off at the level of the cell. Then you can really understand why these things are why the pharmacological model is so flawed. Because a cell doesn't eat drugs. A cell has billions, with a B, billions of years of refining its menu. You follow me? Billions of years of having a super specific menu to eat from. and it is super specific. It's the 90 essential nutrients. It's oxygen, which isn't really eaten, but let's call it eaten. Oxygen, glucose, and maybe a couple of other things that I'm not thinking about right now. But for the most part, it's your 90 essential nutrients, glucose, and oxygen. It doesn't eat drugs. It doesn't know what the heck to do with a drug. Thus, the only thing the cell can do with a drug is purify it, get rid of it as a toxin, which means you've got to marshal all of your detoxification resources, which mean you're using up the B vitamins, you're using vitamin C, you're using vitamin E, you're using up copper, you're using up amino acids, you're depleting your body of nutrients that were probably deficient in the first place. You follow me?
Yep.
So there's no way that can happen, to answer your question. It's impossible. The pharmacomedical model is flawed inherently. It is except for in emergency conditions, and I am on record as saying, in emergency conditions, there are some benefits for these things. Hang on, Bob. We got to take a break. We'll finish up when we come back. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side on the Genesis Communication Network. We'll be back after this. Let's see. Finishing up here with Bob in Minneapolis. Are you there, Bob?
Ben, may I interject quick?
Yeah, sure.
So that, if I understand correctly, on a case-by-case basis, based on an individual's particular medical state, whether it be cancer, Alzheimer's, you name the illness, based on the stage that they're at, it might not be your preferential choice, but a necessity to intervene with medications such as this particular medicine.
Well, not in that case, not in this particular drug, wouldn't say, because that's not like a life-threatening issue. But if you have a life-threatening issue like atherosclerosis, where you're completely blocked up or something because you've been, doing the wrong thing for a long time, yeah, there may be times when you need to have medical intervention. I'm not Pollyannish about this. If you need drugs, you need drugs, particularly painkillers, by the way, and of course antibiotics. Yeah.
But doesn't plaque cause scarring at times, and therefore maybe
it does.
Your choice. This is your choice because you better reverse it somehow, some way versus.
I see what you're saying. So if you don't want to do the other, the non-medical intervention, could you do it this way? Is that what?
Yeah. Well, you might be so far gone that maybe it helps bring back some.
No, in this case, that's not.
To the point where now you can correct your diet after that.
Well, this kind of drug won't. Theoretically, yes, that's true. You can be so far gone that you definitely want to use a drug. But in this case, the way these drugs work, these newfangled UMAB drugs like Humira and I don't know the brand name of this one, but whenever you hear UMAB, the way these things work, they're called monoclonal antibodies. I think this is the technical term. Basically, what they are, they're chemicals that specifically kill whatever we want to kill. In this case, kill plaques. Sometimes they'll kill inflammatory factors. And they think they're high tech and they're all proud of themselves because they are kind of genetic in the sense that they're made up of really cool chemicals called antibodies. Now, in the body, antibodies are used to target bacteria and invaders in this miraculous way, really a stunning way. What we've been able to do now in the last decade or so, a couple decades, is figure out how to create our own antibodies to kill anything we want to kill, or to destroy anything in the body we want to destroy. So they think it's all natural and molecular and it's really special and high tech. It's just glorified pharmacology. What they do is they make these antibodies in a laboratory that are specific against plaque in the case of this new drug, and sometimes in the specific against other inflammatory factors in the case of arthritis or psoriasis. But the point is, the body is making these inflammatory factors to protect itself. For a reason. The body's making plaques. Why is the body making plaques, Bob, in the brain? What? It's just goofy? It's just stupid? The cells, I'm bored today. I'm going to make some plaque. No, it's making plaque to repair the brain. You follow me? There's holes that develop in the brain. That's what the plaque is. Do you understand, Bob? You got holes in your brain. So, the plaque's there, but now you stop the plaque, you're going to get holes you're going to still have holes in your brain. You haven't solved the problem. Do you understand that the plaques, the amyloid plaques that are the bad guy, that are being killed by this new drug, are actually grout for holes in the brain? I'm not being metaphorical. I'm being literal. Holes in the brain, microscopic as they may be. I want to move on, Bob. Does that make sense? Did I help?
Makes a lot of sense. You're the best, Ben. Dr.
All right. Take care, man. Have a great day. Okay, let's move on to David in Pennsylvania. Good morning. Welcome to the Bright Side, David.
Good morning, Ben. I had one quick question for you.
Yes.
I was looking into doing some strength training, and just wanted to see what your thoughts on either a perfect diet, whether it's
For
whey
strength?
protein, raw eggs, probiotics, obviously BTT, coconut oil. So anyway, I wanted to see.
You sound like you know what's going on there. Well, how can I help you?
Or put it in the right order, or when's the best time to really work out, and how much sleep should I get?
That's a ton of questions. Let me just give you a few ideas, because that's a ton of questions. Number one, you always want to do your supplements when you come home from the gym, especially protein. Your body is in a depleted state after a workout, and it will suck up nutrients like a dry sponge sucks up water. So when you come home from the gym, that's when you do your nutrients, especially the protein, okay? Now, obviously, most people who are bodybuilding understand the importance of protein, but don't forget about the importance of fat, especially essential fatty acids. These act as triggers for growth. So making sure you're getting the right balance of EFAs, use our Ultimate EFAs from Longevity, that can be very helpful for you. The next thing is building minerals, especially zinc. Probably the most important of the building minerals is zinc. Make sure and it also has very important properties for building hormones. So making sure you're doing 50 milligrams of zinc a day, zinc picolinate a day. And then there's also staying away from anything that exacerbates inflammation, particularly sugar and carbohydrates. Now, you're going to need a little bit of sugar if you're a bodybuilder or weightlifter. So you don't want to go zero sugar, but you're going to need some, especially in order to help the body absorb protein. That's an interesting point. When you're supplementing with protein, you need a little insulin bump in order to get maximum absorption of the protein, as well as other nutrients for that matter. So when you come home from the gym, maybe a little fruit juice perhaps with your smoothie. Put in some dried frozen fruit with your smoothie when you're going to do a smoothie. That's a nice little sugary combination that isn't too sweet, that will help increase absorption of anabolic nutrients. Also, don't forget about the importance of relaxation. The body grows under conditions of relaxation. The weights stimulate, but the day your days off is when you're actually growing muscle. You follow me? So overtraining is a big problem for folks who are novices who are just starting working out. And it's interesting because you can get a better workout in 3 or 4 days if you work out 3 or 4 days a week than you can if you do 7 days a week, which means you get 3 luscious days to sit on the couch and do nothing. Not necessarily, but to relax. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Also, short, quick bursts are much more anabolic than long-term workouts. So try to work out in short bursts, like maybe 20 minutes of like a circuit kind of training. You know what I'm saying? Where you're not stopping in between, not goofing off, that kind of thing. And you also save time when you do it that way as well. So many more things you could do. You might want to explore the ketogenic diet, last thing, although you're going to need more protein than the average person if you're bodybuilding. But the ketogenic diet might be something to think about. All right, David, good luck.
Thank you,
and give us progress reports periodically. I'd love to hear how you're doing. Thanks, buddy. All right. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to hang up on you there. Thomas in North Carolina, what's up?
Hey, Ben.
Hey.
I'm dealing with a myriad of mystery symptoms here.
Okay.
I got possibly leaky gut syndrome.
Probably.
I was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And my symptoms are mostly skin issues and sleep problems and some stomach issues.
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head, my friend. That's more than likely what you're dealing with, although at this point it may have gone into blood sugar issues and other problems. But for the most part, what you're describing is something getting into the blood through the gut that shouldn't be. How old are you, by the way?
42.
Okay, so you're a young man. You can definitely do something about this. Immediately, you should be fasting for 2 or 3 days. You'll notice your problems will start to resolve right just from that. And then once you start eating again...
Can I stop you real quick? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm 5'10", about 155 pounds, and I've lost maybe 10 or so pounds in the past couple of months as I've changed my diet.
Are you concerned about losing more weight?
Yeah, I can't keep on weighing.
You're not going to lose. Your 2 or 3 days isn't going to cause too dramatic a weight loss, and the weight you lose if you fast is not necessarily bad weight. You want to build muscle. You don't want weight. That's misleading weight loss. You want fat loss, not weight loss. You follow me? And so you're not going to, with a 2 or 3 day fast, you're not going to lose muscle. And if you were going to, if you went to 40 days or 30 days or 2 weeks, you might lose some muscle. But for 2 or 3 days, you're not going to lose muscle. You follow me? You might lose some weight, and that is going to be water weight and maybe some body fat, but it's not going to be muscle. Okay?
Okay.
You with me? So, and it's important to hit the reset button. So 2 or 3 days, you can do a swear V cleanse if you don't want to do a total fast. When you start eating again, eat only one type of food and pay very close attention to how your body responds to that food, especially your IBS, the irritable bowel. Okay?
Right.
You're going to notice that foods that you've been eating regularly are all of a sudden going to become noticeably problematic where you didn't notice it before. That's what the fast does for you. You follow? And then you want to keep a journal, and you want to have lots of data. And then after 3 or 4 days or 5 days of doing this, you're going to find out some stuff that's going to blow you away. Now, once you start getting some food that you can eat, certain foods that you can eat, you want to start focusing on rebuilding the gut with probiotics, the Ultimate Nightly Essence, 9 capsules a day, polysaccharides or slimy substances, as I like to call them, like the Fucoid Z, seaweed, mushroom, aloe vera, noni. All of these have a coating, soothing effect on the digestive tract and stimulate the growth of connective tissue. Use high hyaluronic acid supplements, maybe 100 to 200 milligrams a day can be helpful. Make sure you're doing lots of bone soup and lots of vegetable juices. There's 3 mechanisms for vegetable juices improvement of the health of the intestine. They have fiber, they got nitrates, and they also support the growth of probiotics, and then also fermented vegetables especially. And I hope it helps, Thomas, but I just got only 20 seconds to go, and we're just out of time. If you want to call back, I'd be glad to help you. Send an email to ben@ksco.com and put your phone number there, and I'll get back to you. Thanks, Thomas. All right, I'm sorry if we left you on hold. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Have an awesome, wonderful, beautiful, spectacular day. Check out truthtreatments.com, and we'll talk to y'all later, folks. Bye for now.